Imagine a single stretch of water so small you could drive across it in 20 minutes, yet so powerful that if it were ever closed, the entire global economy would collapse within days. No oil, no gas, no fuel for planes, ships, or factories, stock markets crashing, nations scrambling, wars beginning. This is not a hypothetical. This is the Strait of Hormuz, the most important, most dangerous, and most contested waterway on the face of the earth. And today we tell its complete story. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow passage of water connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and through that, to the entire world. At its narrowest point, it is only 21 miles wide. 21 miles. That is roughly the distance from one side of a major city to the other. And yet, through those 21 miles flows nearly 20% of all the oil traded on Earth. Every single day, between 15 and 20 massive oil tankers pass through, carrying enough energy to power entire countries. It sits between two of the most powerful and hostile forces in the Middle East, Iran on one side, and the United Arab Emirates and Oman on the other. Every ship that passes does so, knowing that one wrong move, one political crisis, one military miscalculation could change everything. The story of the Strait of Hormuz is ancient. For thousands of years before the age of oil, this waterway was already one of the most valuable trade routes in the known world. Ancient Persian, Arab, and Indian merchants sailed through it carrying spices, silk, gold, and precious stones between the civilizations of the East and the West. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to recognize its power. In 1507, the explorer Afonso de Albuquerque sailed into the strait and immediately understood: whoever controls this water controls the trade of the entire Indian Ocean. He captured the island of Hormuz and built a fortress there that dominated regional trade for over a century. Empires rose and fell fighting over this narrow strip of water. The British, the Persians, the Ottomans, all understood what so many leaders today still know. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway, it is power itself. When the 20th century arrived and the world discovered oil beneath the sands of the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz transformed from important to indispensable. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar. These nations sat on the largest reserves of oil and natural gas ever found, and every single drop of it had to pass through the Strait of Hormuz to reach the world. By the 1970s, the strait had become the jugular vein of the global economy. When OPEC cut off oil supplies in 1973, the world got its first taste of what Hormuz could do. Fuel prices quadrupled overnight, economies crashed, and governments panicked. The message was clear: whoever controlled the Strait of Hormuz held a weapon more powerful than any army. No country understands the power of the Strait of Hormuz better than Iran. Iran's coastline runs along the northern edge of the strait for hundreds of miles. Its military bases, missile systems, and naval forces are positioned to monitor, and potentially block, every ship that passes. Iran has threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz multiple times. In 2012, when Western sanctions were crushing its economy, Iranian military commanders publicly warned that they could shut down the strait and stop all oil exports if pushed too far. The United States responded by deploying aircraft carriers, destroyers, and minesweepers to the region. The world held its breath. The strait did not close. But the message was sent on both sides. Iran has the capability. The United States has the will to stop them. And between those two facts, millions of barrels of oil pass every day in an uneasy, fragile peace. The Strait of Hormuz has seen some of the most dangerous military confrontations of the modern era. In 1988, during the Iran-Iraq War, the United States Navy became directly involved in the region. fighting Iranian gunboats in what became known as Operation Praying Mantis, the largest American naval battle since World War II. In 2019, a series of tanker attacks in the Strait brought the world to the edge of open conflict. Oil tankers were struck by mines. Iranian forces seized a British-flagged vessel. American drones were shot down. Tensions reached a boiling point that many military analysts said was closer to war than any moment since the Cold War. And through it all, the tankers kept moving because the alternative was unthinkable. The dependence on the Strait of Hormuz is global, but unequal. Japan imports nearly 90% of its oil through the strait. South Korea, 80%. India, 60%. China, the world's largest energy consumer, relies on the strait for a massive portion of its energy supply. Even Europe, which has diversified its energy sources, would feel an immediate shock if the strait were closed. The United States, once heavily dependent, has reduced its reliance through domestic shale oil production, but its allies remain deeply vulnerable. This is why American naval power has been permanently stationed in the Persian Gulf for decades, not just to protect American interests, but to protect the entire architecture of the global economy that its allies depend on. Governments and energy companies have spent billions of dollars trying to build alternatives to the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia built the East-West pipeline to carry oil across the Arabian Peninsula directly to the Red Sea, bypassing the strait entirely. The UAE constructed the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline for the same reason. But here's the hard truth. Even with these alternatives at full capacity, they can carry only a fraction of the volume that passes through Hormuz every day. The infrastructure does not exist to replace it. The geography does not allow it. The strait cannot be bypassed. It can only be protected or lost. Today, the Strait of Hormuz remains as contested as ever. Iran continues to expand its naval capabilities in the region. The United States maintains a powerful military presence. Saudi Arabia and Israel, now increasingly aligned, watch Iran's moves with deep unease. The rise of drone warfare has added a terrifying new dimension. A single armed drone can now threaten a supertanker worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Cyber attacks can disrupt navigation systems. The battlefield has expanded in ways no one fully understands. And as the world slowly transitions to renewable energy, there is a race against time. A window in which the Strait of Hormuz still holds the world hostage, and every major power knows it. 21 miles of water, billions of dollars, the fate of nations. The Strait of Hormuz is living proof that on this earth, geography is destiny. The country that sits beside it, the navy that patrols it, the pipelines that feed into it, these are the true levers of global power. If this opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to understand the world a little better. And subscribe, because the stories that matter most are the ones hiding in plain sight.